Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing my September wrap-up. September as a month kind of dragged on. Like when I looked back I was like, oh, what books did I read this month? I was like, I read that this month. This month I'm going to be trying something different. I'm going to rank them from my least favourite to my favourite, so starting from 9 to number 1. I did participate in Becca's Bookoplathon, which I successfully completed. Before we discuss the books I read, let's talk about some stats. So in September I read 4,013 pages across 9 books. That brings my grand total up to 89 books read this year. 4 of those books were adult, 5 were YA, or what I'm classifying as YA. And then for genre, 6 of them were fantasy, 1 of them was a mystery, 1 was contemporary, and 1 was a romance. And for my ratings, I gave 1 book 1 star, 1 book 2 stars, 1 book 3.5 stars, 5 books 4 stars, and 1 book 5 stars. And that gives an average rating of 3.5. So book number 9 on this list is going to be Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. I gave this a 1 out of 5 stars. This is the sequel to Stalking Jack the Ripper. In book 1, we follow Audrey Rose Wadsworth, a lord's daughter who sneaks away to learn in her uncle's laboratory. But when a gruesome string of murders start happening, she finds herself dragged into the investigation. In the sequel, bizarre murders start happening in Romania, where Audrey has just travelled to start learning forensic medicine. She must discover whether it is a copycat or has a legend returned to life. So, what I liked about this book? Not much. I enjoyed this slightly more than the first book, but it is still a 1 star, so clearly not that much. Or you can tell how much I disliked Stalking Jack the Ripper. This was a chance card for Bookopoly. I really don't know why I put it on a chance card. So yes, I did enjoy it slightly more than the first book. I found the characters slightly more tolerable, but that was kind of in the first half of the book, and then as we continued on, they started to get more and more annoying again. But I think the reason that I did prefer this over the first book is because I am not really extremely familiar with the story of Vlad the Impaler / Dracula / the history of Romania, whereas with Stalking Jack the Ripper, I have watched plenty of like true crime YouTube, TV shows, all about that, so I have a fairly good idea, and so I was like, that's not right. Whereas this one, I was like, this could be right. And I think that's the only reason I enjoyed it anymore. So on to what I didn't like about it, which is basically everything. I still dislike our 2 main characters. I just find them so annoying. Audrey is very bland. I don't think she has any personality at all, apart from, I'm not like other girls. And then Thomas is literally just a rip-off Sherlock, and it's very annoying. Because actually in the first book, half of the book, he wasn't making any deductions, and I think that's why I liked him slightly more. Whereas in the second half, he was back to himself, and I was like, oh, no, I don't like you. There was a use of the miscommunication trope, and it made no sense. And then how they resolved it made even less sense. Like, I cannot say how, because obviously that would be a spoiler, but so bad is all I will say. This book also contained it's not so much a trope, but I think kind of a thing that a lot of authors do, where they have like 2 conversations on page with this character, and all of a sudden they're best friends / just friends, whatever. And it's like, how? You've spoken twice. And you're just supposed to believe that these people are now friends. And it's like, show me them becoming friends. Don't tell me, oh yeah, they're friends. Because you've given me no reason to believe that. And then just, the whole book didn't make sense. The plot twist? No. Audrey and Thomas are terrible detectives. Terrible! They never figure anything out. In both of the books, they didn't figure it out. They just happened to avoid being murdered by the person. I'm like, that's all I have to say about this. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. And so then we are on to book number 8 on this list, and that is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This follows Bryce Quinlan, a half-fae, half-human woman living in Crescent City. Bryce gets dragged into this murder investigation, and the city's leaders assign an enslaved fallen angel, Hunt, to protect and also assist Bryce in this investigation. Bryce fights to find the truth in this investigation, but she finds herself becoming more attracted to her brooding angel companion. I was okay with this book. I was a little nervous, but I enjoyed it more than some of Sarah J Maas's other books, and I enjoyed it less than some of Sarah J Maas's books. So, what I liked about it, I found Hunt a lot more likable than previous Sarah J Maas love interests. I still didn't love him or anything, but I was definitely like okay with him. I did like the background characters that we saw. I don't think we got them fully developed or anything, but what I saw from them I really enjoyed. I was very interested in this world. It is very difficult to combine technology and magic together, and I think she did a pretty good job of it. I don't think it was perfect. I am a sucker for family dynamics and also just like good developed friendships, and I was happy to see that we were getting some. They weren't obviously the most important thing because they never are for Sarah J Maas and for most people. I won't just pin that on Sarah J Maas. Very few authors put family and friendships ahead of romance. So I wasn't surprised that they weren't the most developed thing, but I was happy that an attempt was made. And also the romantic relationship, it did actually have some very cute moments. So what I didn't like, I just dislike Sarah J Maas's writing style. It's just really not for me. I compared it in one of my vlogs, I can't remember which one, to Jay Kristoff, who I also really don't like his writing. I think Sarah J Maas is slightly better because she's not as over the top, but the two of them are definitely, they focus on the wrong things I think a lot of the time, and then they just over describe some things, and it gets kind of annoying and it gets old very quickly. Sometimes it feels like she's trying too hard and it becomes very long-winded and it's just like a huge run-on sentence. Like there's been like times where she's like had the same like amount in a paragraph describing like an outfit as like a fight scene. I think she's gotten better for that, but it is something that she kind of focuses on the details that I don't so much care about. One of my other problems with it was, despite there was so much info dumping at the start of the book, I still didn't understand half of the stuff that was happening. I was like, wait, who's in charge? I was like, wait, I thought So despite info dumping, I still didn't understand how this world worked fully. And then about 500 pages in the middle, nothing happened. Nothing. So like 100 pages in the front, you know, stuff was happening. And then like the last 200 pages, stuff was happening. And in an 800 page book, I don't want 500 pages to be barely anything happening. No, I can't deal with that. I was just like, when will this get interesting? When? Like, yes, I got some cute moments between Bryce and Hunt in there, but was it worth it? No. I found it very predictable. It had some typical Maas plot twists. Can they even be plot twists at this point? Like, I knew what was gonna happen. I was like, okay, so this person is gonna do this, and this is gonna happen. And yeah, very predictable. Lastly is, I hated Bryce as a character. As soon as I realized she was just a red-haired Selena who has the ability to curse, I was like, oh god. Yeah, I did not like that. Because I don't like Selena, so why would I want another one of them? There were just some lines in there that she said. Also, there was a couple of lines that Hunt said that, like, I was like, that's not right. But I was about to call her Selena, no. But Bryce especially, there were some lines in there I was like, no, that's not a good line to say. So 2 out of 5 stars. So then the next book that I read this month was Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is a reread for me. In July, I read it. I read the ebook and I actually gave it 3 stars back then, but I liked it more this time. In case you didn't see that wrap up, I'll just quickly go through this. So this is a solitaire novella set as Nick gets ready to go off to university. So Nick and Charlie, obviously this perfect couple, and they're basically inseparable. But with Nick leaving, Charlie feels very alone and he doesn't know how this relationship is going to work and if they will last being separated. This is a great add-on for people who want more of Nick and Charlie. Their relationship is just so cute, and this also shows the good and the bad of their romance, because obviously nobody is perfect. So I gave this revised edition a 0.5 more because the edits that were made were very good, because there was some kind of like continuity errors between like Solitaire and Heartstopper that she fixed, and also the cute drawings inside it. Like, I had to give it 0.5 more, and I did actually enjoy it more. I don't know why, maybe I was just more in the mood for it or something. On the negative side, not much happens in here. It is just a short novella, like it's only 100 and like something pages, so there's like not this huge plot or anything obviously. But what I think a lot of people wouldn't like about this book is basically the definition of miscommunication trope. So even if you like love Heartstopper, but if you hate like the miscommunication trope, maybe don't read this. Obviously, all up to you. Book number 6 on this list is The Other Wind by Ursula K. Le Guin. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. There's a lot of 4 out of 5 stars coming your way. In the finale to the Earthsea cycle, we follow a sorcerer, Alder, who dreams at night of his wife kissing him over the wall that separates the living and the dead. He travels with Tanar, Tahanu, King Lebanon, and some others because not only are the dead trying to free themselves from the afterlife, the dragons are also back to claim what they believe is rightfully theirs. I really enjoy the characters in this. Tanar is definitely my favorite in the series, and her development between Tombs of Atuan and this final book is absolutely incredible. I didn't even like her or even care that much about her in the Tombs of Atuan, but by the time we got here, she's just such an interesting character, and her insights on the world. She is kind of an old lady at this point, and so she just has all of these really interesting insights, and she's just kind of this motherly figure to everyone, and she's just honestly the greatest. I also enjoyed the other characters, but Tanar is definitely the best, and the relationships between all of the characters, but especially like there's this kind of adoptive nearly family unit that happens, and I really love that and appreciate it. I don't like say who's in it in case you want to read the series and don't want to be spoiled, but they're so adorable. I did enjoy the plot of this. Like Tahanu, it is definitely more character focused, and it is kind of more focused on their inner monologue more than like going on an adventure like the other ones, which is probably why I prefer Tahanu and The Other Wind, because I do more prefer kind of character focused stories more than the let's go sailing and doing this and that. On the other hand, I do wish that we got to see more of Ged. He started the series. He was our first main character, and he has appeared in all of the books, but his role in them got smaller and smaller as they went on, and I understand why that decision was made, but at the same time it would have been nice to get a small bit more of him so we could kind of nearly get a full circle kind of moment, but unfortunately that didn't happen. There was also kind of a hinted romance between two characters, and nothing happened between them, and we barely saw them interact, and I just didn't see any connection between the two. So I was like, what is that? Is that happening? And lastly, I kind of wish the ending was slightly more developed. It was quite rushed, and I was trying to follow their thought processes to how they arrived to this conclusion, and I don't think it was 100% clear. It was just, oh, of course this makes sense, and I was like, does it? Maybe I'm just really not smart. I kind of wish it was more developed, and it was like, you know, this very dramatic ending, but it wasn't. I also kind of wish, again, kind of connected to the ending, I do wish there was like an epilogue kind of, and we just got to see, you know, 10 years into the future or something. There was like a small bit, but I don't think it was enough for me. I would have liked to have seen, so 10 years in the future, this character is doing this, these characters are doing that, but we didn't get that. Book number 5 on this list, which I didn't write any notes on this, so we're winging it. So book number 5 on this list was Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to. This is the sequel trilogy to the Farseer trilogy. So these are all part of like a huge book kind of universe called The Realm of Elderlings, but they are split up into smaller series. So the Live Ship Traders, which is the one that Ship of Magic is in, can be used as an entry point into the Realm of Elderlings, but I personally would say start with the Farseer trilogy. The Live Ship Traders takes place in a different part of the world than the Farseer trilogy, and in this part of the world, trader families can buy ships made of wizard wood called live ships, and after 3 generations of the same family die on the ship, it quickens, which means it basically becomes alive. So the Vestrit family is one of these trader families that owns one of these ships, and Althea Vestrit is the youngest daughter, and her whole life she has basically been raised on this ship called the Vesha, and she loves this ship as if it's part of her family. And when they get news that her father is dying, they immediately bring him on ship so he can be the final generation that needs to die to awaken the live ship. But after this, she discovers that she is not the heir to the ship, and it actually went to her older sister Kefria, and therefore it actually went to her brother-in-law Kyle, who doesn't allow Althea to be on the ship. So it follows multiple perspectives. So it follows Althea, who is trying to come up with a plan to get her ship back. It follows Kyle Haven on the Vivesha with his son Wintro. Wintro wants nothing more than to return to the priesthood, which he was promised to, but is being forced to stay on the live ship because the live ship wants one of its own bloodline to be on its decks. And then it also follows a pirate called Kenneth who wants to become the king of the pirates. I honestly have very mixed feelings about this. I don't know how I feel. And I really should have taken notes for this. Most of my other books on here I could wing it, but this I really don't know what I feel. I liked the characters. I don't think I loved any of them, but even the ones that I hated, they were so interesting and well developed, and Robin Hobb always does that. All of her characters are so fantastic, and she takes no prisoners. She will hurt them and the stakes are always so high. And I really like Robin Hobb's writing. She has the right amount of like beautiful descriptions and also the right amount of like heavy action, and it just so well written. It's so understandable as well, because I know nothing about boats, but I was like, yeah, of course, they have to do that. You can tell she researched how they did this sailing, and she makes it very understandable, I think, to the readers. The thing is, I don't know why I don't love it, because there's nothing in there that I'm like, I hate. With Ship of Magic, I don't know what it is that I don't like about it. I'm like, no, the side characters were well developed, the plot was interesting, and I just don't know what it is that I don't like. I've just been trying to think of it, and I think it might just be the fact I don't really care about boats. I know a lot of people on BookTube and just love to read like books about like pirates and all of that, but I just don't. I'm not that interested in it. So I think that might be it. And I think the other reason is I'm not as attached to the characters as I was with Fitz in the Farseer trilogy, but that is because we only followed Fitz in the Farseer trilogy, and it was all in his head. It was a first-person book, so of course we were going to grow attached to him because we got to see it firsthand, him suffering. Whereas in this, it was third person, so which I usually prefer third person to a first person book, but maybe I just wasn't as attached to the characters. But I will say I have one theory about who a certain character is, and I think I'm right. I can't say any more. So book number 4 on this list, I think, is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So, Bilbo Baggins is a perfectly normal hobbit who lives a perfectly happy life. But one day his quiet life is disturbed by the wizard Gandalf and 13 dwarves who want him as the add-on to their adventure because obviously 13 cannot travel alone. Their plan to raid the treasure are hoarded by the dragon Smaug, which was stolen from the dwarves years and years ago. I loved the character of Bilbo, and the growth he goes through in this book in such a short amount of time is really amazing, and it doesn't feel rushed. It feels very natural, and I very much appreciated that. I also really liked Gandalf as a character, and just the ways he twists words and stories and comes up with plans to get his way is very smart. And I'm truly interested in the world of Middle-earth, and I can't wait to read more because what I've read so far is so beautifully written and well crafted and like so well thought out. I'm like so excited to continue. And like I can 100% see why this author is so influential and why like these books are like the blueprint of fantasy nowadays, because it is so wonderfully created. I'm not usually very interested in travel plot lines, you know, we're going on an adventure, blah 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 blah. That usually doesn't bother me so much, but I actually quite enjoyed it. But on the negative side is the side characters weren't very well developed. They all blended together, and I don't think he meant to develop them very well, but I would prefer that. I did find the narration very repetitive. The same phrases and the same songs kind of used over and over again. I know that this is a book for like younger readers, but there was so many conveniences that happened in here. Someone shows up just in the nick of time, and you know, this person sings a song with the map to get to wherever, and it's just a little too easy. Last thing is lots of stuff happened like off screen basically. Like it was just like, well, while Bilbo was doing this, here let me tell you what actually happened in this other place. And it's like, I thought we were supposed to be following Bilbo on his adventure, but like it's actually these other people doing stuff. But I did in general enjoy this book, and I'm very glad that I did read it because I think you should at least give it a go. So I've kind of struggled with choosing between book 3 and 2 in this because I would put them very closely on the 4-star scale. But in the end I went with number 3 is going to be The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I know. Who am I? I read an adult romance and I actually enjoyed it. This book follows Stella Lane, who believes maths connects everyone in the universe and is extremely dedicated to her job. Stella's mother, however, is pushing for grandkids, but Stella is autistic and she dislikes physical interaction, and so she decides there's only one solution for this, is that she needs more practice. And what better way to get practice than to hire a professional, and so she hires the escort Michael. He agrees to give her some lessons, but soon both of them begin to think that there could be more than just lessons between the two of them. This was such a fun surprise. It was light and fluffy and just adorable. And it had me like smiling from ear to ear half of the time. I was really happy and also kind of surprised that we got both Stella and Michael's point of views. I had just presumed that it was going to be only Stella's, but I was also glad that we did get to see Michael's point of view on all of the events that were happening and all of the pining he had. He was pining. I loved both of these characters so much. Their own like personal development was really great, and then also their development of their romance together was also just adorable. I really enjoyed it. But the reasons that I couldn't give this a 5-star is because it was very insta-lovey, and it's not just, I totally get kind of insta attraction, that is totally understandable, and there definitely was that as well, but I did think it was more insta-love than insta attraction. And then also Michael has very strict rules for being an escort. For example, he doesn't do repeat sessions with clients because they become attached, but he throws away his rules for Stella basically immediately, which kind of connects to the insta-love. He's like, this one's different. And I was just like, is she though? Also, from around the 50% mark to the 75% mark, I got a bit bored. It started to be very repetitive. Like it was just, oh, I don't think he loves me, and then, oh, she's too good for me, and it was just that over and over and over again. I was like, okay, it was cute for the first while, I like some pining, but this is just taking it to a whole new level. So we were just stuck in this endless cycle, and I was like, come on, move the story forward, move it forward. And then around the 75% mark, we got right back into it, and I started enjoying it again. So book number 2 on this list is going to be The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to. So this is set after City of Heavenly Fire and also after the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. Alec and Magnus have settled into their life together. However, one night the Book of the White is stolen and Magnus is stabbed with a weird magical weapon, so the gang must get back together and travel to Shanghai to try and figure out what is happening. I loved being with these characters again. I didn't think I needed any more of them. I thought I was over the whole mortal instruments. I'm good, I don't need them anymore. But no, I needed them. I needed them. Still, I loved every single second of them being together and all of their interactions. The friendships, the romances, the family dynamics, all of it is so, so perfect. And these characters, they never fail to make me laugh. Magnus and Jace especially, and also usually Simon, but Simon was a bit of a sad boy in this one. But even then he still had his moments. But Magnus especially, he always makes me laugh. And I love how we see that how much they've changed since the start of the Mortal Instruments. And especially since this is after all of that stuff has happened, we see how it kind of affects them. We also got some backstory of the most iconic warlock trio in the universe, how they met and all that, and I was living for it. It was a short story at the end and I loved it. Oh my god. Every time I think I'm over Cassandra Clare and then she just brings me right back in. Things that I don't like is, so this is a really minor thing, it's kind of nearly more petty than a complaint. We didn't get any Tessa in here, and she was mentioned because Jem was in here, but I was like, give me Tessa. And I do think that it's something that Cassandra Clare does often. She puts Jem in stories and he's like, oh, Tessa's not here, she's gone hiding away. And I'm like, number one, she's a fairly powerful warlock herself. Number two, she trained and lived with Shadowhunters for years. I'm like, she can protect herself. But I understand why she didn't want to put Tessa in here, because she doesn't want to take away from the Mortal Instruments gang. But like, she put Jem in here. The ending in this was very rushed. Like, I literally had to read it twice to be like, that's it? It's over? It happened so quick. I was like, what? What? And yeah, and it was just a bit too easy. And then my last thing is, and it's the complaint with just kind of Cassandra Clare books in general, is lately I haven't been loving them. And that is because of the fact I think they're all become quite similar. I think they follow the very same general plot. I don't want that. I want something different. And it's just all become very boring and very repetitive. And, you know, they go to this place, they go to a different dimension maybe, or, you know, it's someone's family member that's causing trouble, and it's just, I'm kind of over it nearly. Am I going to continue to read all of the Shadowhunter books until they're finished? Yes. Am I over it? Kind of. I mean, I still gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, so clearly I'm not. There's some books that I'm like, okay, this was way too similar to this or that, but this wasn't as bad, but I was like, okay, well, this thing happened in this book. Because that's one thing that I really loved about the Red Scrolls of Magic, because that is one of my favorite Cassandra Clare books, and especially in recent years, it's my favorite. And I think that's because it's different. It's not the same. It's Magnus and Alec on a tour of Europe because Magnus may or may not have started a cult. Like, that was different. So now, we are just at the end. We are at my reread. So, technically, it probably shouldn't count as my number 1 because I've already read it and knew I would love it. So, it doesn't really count. Probably not. But because I only had 1 5 stars, I'm letting it count. So, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. And I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I actually preferred it this time around. And I loved it the first, so... Kel is an Antari, a rare blood magician who has the ability to open doors between the different London. So there is Grey London, which is our world, which has no magic. Red London, which is Kel's London, which is a perfect kind of balance between humanity and magic. White London, which is a dying world that has been losing its magic because of the corrupted Black London, which is a dead world that became corrupted by magic years and years before, which caused all of the doors to be shut. Kel delivers messages from the royals of each London to another, but he also has a side job of doing some smuggling. But one day he smuggles the wrong thing and he has to put it right before it causes serious trouble to the world. So, I adore this story. It is such a comfort read for me. Like, oh, I enjoyed it even more the second time around. I love the characters and I love the relationships between them, especially the brotherly relationship between Rye and Kel. It's so perfect. The world and the magic I adore. I love elemental magic, which is a huge part of this story, and also I also find like stories about blood magic interesting, but especially elemental magic. I love stories with elemental magic. I used to always want to do that. I think that's just from growing up with things like Witch, and like Winx kind of had it, and like all that stuff. Also like Avatar: The Last Airbender, all those kind of things. I love just elemental magic, and I love the world. I love the idea that there's just these parallel Londons that are so similar yet so different. I think the plot just like immediately hooks you in, and yeah, I adore this. Yeah, there's nothing in this book that I do not like. I enjoy it all, but I know some of the main complaints, because trying to be unbiased here, which I'm really not. Like, I love this and I'm not listening to if you hate it. I'm only kidding. But I do know that some of the major complaints with it is that Lila is a bit of a bland character. I think she definitely starts off quite annoying and not like other girls, but I think she goes through a lot of development in just this story and as well as in just the whole trilogy. Another complaint that is frequent with this is Victoria Schwab's writing style. I personally like it. I really love her writing, and I think it like really sucks me right in, but I know that some people do definitely complain about that, so in case you're one of those people. So this is not a complaint I have, because I find it very amusing, but I do know that some people kind of hate the fact that Kel is supposed to be this extremely powerful, like one of the most powerful people in the world, and yet he just gets beat up all of the time, which I find very entertaining to be honest. But I can understand why that would annoy people. But I think it is because I think Schwab was trying to find this balance between very powerful but also not invulnerable. And I think she did a good job of it, and it is very entertaining because he likes to think he's a big shot and then he's not. I love this book. I don't personally agree with those complaints, but just for the sake of giving you warning that those are things people don't like, there you go. But read this book, I love it. So those were the books that I read this month. Have you read any of these? Please tell me your thoughts. Please. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this awkward attempted video. If you did, subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye!